Quería preguntarle a John cómo le convence Xavier para venir aquí a Euskadi y saber si le ha puesto un poco en antecedentes sobre cómo funciona el sector tecnológico vasco, que para nosotros es importante, pero no sé si desde fuera se ve así, John.
How did Xavier convince you to come here to Bilbao, and did he explain you all the technology potential we have here, all the possibilities concerning technology in Basque Country, John?
Yes. I had first met him in the United States. He came to visit me in Florida, and we had quite an interesting discussion because I'm always curious about new innovations with technology, and I felt that what Sherpa is doing is the next potentially big thing that can happen for particularly mobile devices, because where you have a small screen and people want to be able to capture information very, very quickly in an easy way. The user experience becomes even more important than the search. And so this is a step beyond, and I was very curious about that. So Zabi and I communicate regularly. We talk by phone. We share messages with each other. So when I was invited to come here, it was an event I look forward to.
Bueno, Xavier, vaya flores, bueno, tú también te lo has trabajado, porque nos acaba de decir John Sculley que Sherpa, bueno, pues es la mayor cosa que puede ocurrir en lo que concierne a dispositivos móviles. Bueno, hemos estado hablando, o le hemos preguntado a John Sculley del gran potencial que hay aquí en Euskadi. So there is a big potential here concerning technology, but there is a lot of unemployment, a lot of difficulties. Entrepreneurs have a lot of problems in order to create their startups. I don't know if you have some advices to institutions and entrepreneurs in this sector.
I think the most important thing is to have curiosity and to be exploring many of the ideas that are happening all over the world, because it is not just Spain where the revolution is taking place, it's the revolution that's happening in information across the entire world. And so one can go on the internet and be able to make relationships, to connect information with ideas. And the most important thing in starting a new company is having the right talent and having the right vision and being able to solve the right problems. If you want to build a billion-dollar business, you have to solve a billion-dollar problem. And you can learn about that by collaborating over the internet with other people in other countries as well.
Yeah, but a lot of people say that they can't get loans easily. Do you think it's a good bet for banks and institutions not to give loans? Estamos hablando de préstamos, hablando de las dificultades que tienen muchas empresas tecnológicas para sacar adelante sus negocios.
Well, I think that's one of the advantages that we have in the United States, that there is a lot of experience with venture capital investing in young companies. That's not as true in other parts of the world, especially in Europe. So it is necessary to do what we call bootstrap. Bootstrap means you have to start small. You have to spend very carefully, be very resourceful, because it is harder in Spain and in other parts of Europe to be able to get the startup capital that we find quite easy to get in the United States.
Claro, está hablando de un factor muy importante, ¿no? Que es el capital riesgo, y hemos hablado en este programa más de una vez, ¿no? Que se concede, o bueno, hay muchas más facilidades para obtenerlo en Estados Unidos que aquí.
So the cost of starting a company today is much less expensive than it was even 5 years ago. And that's because you can actually almost begin a company with a credit card. It happens many times in the United States. People use AWS, Amazon Web Services. Sherpa uses that. So you don't have to invest large amounts of capital into building the technology. You rent the technology when you need it. So this opens up a new pathway for people who don't have a lot of startup capital to be able to think about starting a company. I'm actually writing a book now that will be coming out later this year that reveals some of the secrets. It demystifies the complexity of how do you build new companies, but particularly written for people outside the United States who are curious about how do you start companies, how we've been able to start so many companies in the U.S., and why can't that be done in other parts of the world, including Spain.
Bueno, está preparando un libro, John Sculley, para desmitificar todo el proceso de creación de una empresa. Y es que dice que el coste de arrancar una empresa, bueno, que es muchísimo menos caro de lo que era hace 5 años. I think you're thinking a lot about making business or you're already making business in India. Is it a good place for business?
It's a very interesting opportunity because India has a very large young population, and the cost of a smartphone, like an iPhone, is about $800. That's 2 months' salary for the typical Indian person, and yet 70% of the smartphones sold in India are sold for less than $200. So we decided to start a new smartphone company called Obi Mobile, where we're going to sell very high quality smartphones, but we'll sell them for way under $200. So for the young people, teenagers, people in their 20s who might aspire to an expensive phone like an iPhone or a high-end Samsung, we can actually bring them a very high quality mobile device for a fraction of that price. And for India, that's extremely important. The price is very, very important in the decision for people in India.
Claro, John, bueno, le hemos preguntado pues que, a ver, por sus negocios en India, porque va a sacar, o está sacando ya, ¿are they already in the market?
They will be in the market this month.
This month.
Yeah.
Este mes va a empezar a vender unos móviles en la India, donde, bueno, pues tienen un gran mercado potencial que cuestan menos de $200. O sea que el talento va por ahí, ¿no? Es sacar una buena idea y también saber tu mercado, ¿no? Potencial, el mercado potencial que tienes. ¿Tú recomendarías ir o mirar mucho a Asia?
For the smartphones here?
For smartphones or for business?
Well, I would,
for technology business?
I would imagine that price may be important in Spain too, because the economy has been weak and there's very high unemployment. Not so much in Bilbao, which seems to be very healthy economically, but if you go to the south of Spain, where the unemployment is high, I'd imagine that the same opportunity for lower price products as we're doing we'll do it not only in India, but we're going throughout all of South Asia, because the new middle class is emerging, and it is a different model. It's one where a frugal economy, meaning same products for much lower price points, is really the big opportunity.
Bueno, pues eso, que ve grandes oportunidades, teniendo en cuenta pues que hay una creciente clase media, también no solo en India, sino en el sudeste asiático, bueno, también otros lugares, ha dicho Bilbao no, pero bueno, en España, you don't see Spain in a very good shape at the moment. ¿No ves a España en buena forma en este momento?
Me gusta España también, pero es muy difícil. In the southern part of Spain, it's a very difficult economy. The real estate prices have gone way down. Many foreigners bought properties in Spain, and the prices are below what they paid for it. Unemployment is very high in the southern part of Spain. But if you look at the Basque region, it is completely different. It's almost like a different country here. And the university system is so strong. The entrepreneurs have opportunity here. There's talent here. So I look at the opportunity in the Basque region as really quite different than the rest of Spain.
Habla de, bueno, pues de que hay muchas, o él ve muchas más oportunidades aquí en el norte. Habla de Euskadi como que parece un país diferente con respecto a lo que está ocurriendo en el sur.
Yo, ya que está John aquí, no quiero perderme la oportunidad de preguntar a una persona como él, que tiene una experiencia tan amplia en lo que es las nuevas tecnologías, ha visto crecer empresas como Apple. ¿Por dónde crees, John, que va el futuro de las nuevas tecnologías? ¿Los wearables, realidad virtual, los famosos drones que Google apuesta por ellos, la robótica? ¿Por dónde crees que va a ir el futuro?
Well, I think there is a big future for sensor-based products, and wearables have sensors in them. When I joined Silicon Valley 32 years ago, it was the early days for microprocessors. And now microprocessors are very powerful and very inexpensive. We're now in the early days of sensors, so for wearable devices, they're going to get incredible capabilities over the coming years. And one of the companies that I'm a co-founder of is called Misfit Wearables, and they're present here at Sherpa Conference.
So this is one of your wearables.
Yes.
Bueno, el aparato que está ayudando a Xavier pertenece a la compañía Misfit Wearables.
Que cofundó él también.
Que cofundó él.
Sí.
Y bueno, pues en respuesta a la pregunta que le ha hecho Enrique, justamente ve grandes posibilidades o cree que el futuro está en los sensores de estos wearables, que son aparatos tecnológicos para llevar puestos. No sé si Xavier...
Exacto.
Sí, exacto.
Pensaba que ibas a sacar otro, digo,
No,
a ver,
iba a sacar
tiene que tener miles de
el móvil
cacharros.
para una cosa, pero bueno. O sea, se toca aquí y me está diciendo que he andado todo esto durante hoy, me traquea también el sueño y eso. Pero todavía esto es la early stage. Esto es el principio de algo que va a dar mucho más que hablar.
It's just like in the beginning of the personal computer industry, the devices were very simple. The same is true now with the wearables. But if you look at wearables over the next several years, you're going to see some amazing capabilities of wearable devices.
Like, what are you thinking about? Está hablando de las grandes posibilidades de estos aparatos. No es que no me puedo ni imaginar en qué nos vamos a convertir.
Well, for example, for people's wellness, for their health, they'll be able to track almost every attribute of your wellness. So you can track your activity, your caloric burn, your quality of sleep.
You don't have that already?
We have those types of capabilities, but they're going to get better and better in terms of the accuracy of that information. And then to be able to integrate that with setting goals, so each person can have their own plan as to how they want to monitor improvement. And these things are already starting to happen, and it's getting better and better all the time. Most of the technology is not in the device. Most of the technology is what's called predictive analytics, which is massive amounts of computational processing going on in the cloud. And that's what makes the wearable products so interesting for the future, is that it takes advantage of not only mobility, but it also takes advantage of tremendous computational power in the cloud for predictive analytics.
Bueno, está hablando de análisis que hacen predicciones,
Nos gustan los
en cualquier caso, sí, que cada vez, bueno, pues que tendremos informaciones pues mejores y mucho más concretas en lo que respecta pues a nuestra salud, ¿no? Que es una de las cosas que más nos preocupan. Did you understand? We're talking about the tech bubble.
Yes, yeah. I think WhatsApp. I think WhatsApp is an anomaly. It's a very, very successful company, but it's only 5 years old, and it got acquired for $19 billion US. So that is not typical of what to expect. So I wouldn't say that that's indicative of a bubble. It's just indicative of something that's quite out of the normal. But there are many, many successful companies that are being created that may not be as successful an outcome as WhatsApp, but there's still an opportunity for real creativity. If you think back to the early days of the web, first it was about portals, and then it moved to search, and now it's moved to mobile. And as you go to mobile, just as people don't go to portals the way they used to, even search is different on a mobile device, and that's why Sherpa is particularly interesting to me, because Sherpa puts a much higher priority on the user experience. If you think about Google search, which has obviously been very successful, but it's all text, and it lists in some priority. Well, that's not so easy to use on a mobile device when you're moving around, or if you're in a car and you're driving around. So what Sherpa is doing is saying, let's take it to the next level, and let's integrate personal assistant with what's called predictive analytics. This is a massive amount of information that is computed in the cloud, and let's combine that with a visual experience that you can easily glance at, whether it's a wrist device, these things are coming in the future, or whether it's smartphones that we have today. So we are always in a period of opportunity and an opportunity of change. So I don't look at it as a bubble just because WhatsApp had such an extraordinary price outcome. I look at it as a natural progression of innovation.
O sea, que no considera que estemos hablando de burbujas, sino de una progresión natural de tecnología. Aunque,
Pero,
considera que el caso de WhatsApp es una anomalía.
Sí, eso te iba a decir, ¿no? Porque no parece muy normal que WhatsApp cueste más dinero que BlackBerry, que has intentado adquirir hace poco, ¿no?
Sí. BlackBerry was very successful, but it failed to adapt. And so if you think of where BlackBerry was before the iPhone, it was the leader, along with Nokia.
Yeah.
Que BlackBerry fue muy exitosa, pero que no supo adaptarse.
Sí, mucho éxito before the iPhone. But then iPhone came out and BlackBerry did nothing.
Yeah.
Luego llegó el iPhone
so you
y
have to
BlackBerry no
always
hizo
be
nada.
responsive. You have to be responsive. And so there was a real lesson in BlackBerry's experience that if you are not responsive, you can lose your position.
So we're not talking about bubbles, but you just have to have a good smell. You mean that in order to bid
Good
for
taste.
these products?
Sí, bueno, taste.
Good taste.